Okay, guys, so SAT season is upon us. We have a lot of tests coming up starting in August. And so I want to get into the top 6 tips of things that you can do leading up to your test date. But before we dive into that, I'm Percy and I've been tutoring the SAT for the past 8 years or so. And so if you want to learn about SAT related content or testing related content, or content for your courses, subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell for videos that come up. Okay, so the first tip in terms of preparing for the upcoming tests is I want to make sure that you start your studying at least 3 to 4 weeks before your test date. Okay, so we have one coming up on August 23rd, right? And so really the studying at the bare minimum should probably start happening right about now. And I would say that if you're studying in the shorter time frame, which is 3 to 4 weeks prior to a test, you're kind of going to want to do stuff at least every day, right? Maybe a little bit every day. Okay. If it's a longer time frame, you can probably get away with once every 2 days, or maybe even think about like four days a week or 3 days a week. Have those study sessions consistently spread out. But again, you still want to be consistent with your studying. The longest range that I've seen in terms of studying for an SAT is about 5 to 6 months, but I don't think you need to take that long. I would say on the longer end, you could probably do about 2 to 3 months of prep before an SAT. Okay, so just remember, don't cram everything at the last second. Start studying now rather than later. It's better to spread out studying instead of cramming it all in at the end. Okay. Also, during this study period, make sure, whether that's you're starting 3 or 4 weeks before or whether you're starting 2 months before, try to get on a consistent sleep schedule that gets you up in a timely manner for when the SAT test center would be, taking people in and, when you'd have to arrive at your testing center, right? So typically you are going to arrive at your testing center and be admitted into it around the 7:45 a.m. marker on a Saturday morning. And then the testing, once the orientation period is done, testing usually starts around 8:15 or 8:45, somewhere in that range. And so during this period, just so you know, this is tip number 2. You want to get into a consistent sleep schedule. Okay, so you don't want to try to get into the consistent sleep schedule in the days leading up to the test because your body takes time to adjust to a new sleeping schedule. Start that sleeping schedule anywhere from 3 weeks to 1 or 2 months before the test date, right? Just to get on that circadian rhythm that'll help you be awake in the morning and start testing effectively. Also, just know that a lot of the test center doors usually close at 8 a.m. They open at 7:45 and some of them close at 8 a.m. And you definitely cannot enter by the time testing is started. So make sure you kind of get there in maybe the 7:30, 7:45 range to the testing center just in case. Okay. Okay. Now the third tip is something that I think a lot of people do. The third tip is something that a lot of people don't take proper advantage of, and that is to take a nice break on the day before testing. Okay. So a lot of people think that, let's just say they're kind of taking it easy. And then they're like, oh shoot, I have the SAT on Saturday. I need to cram all of Friday so that all the information's in my head. That is the worst possible thing you can do. Because not only does that wear you out, but it also just fills your brain with all this stuff that you haven't had enough proper practice on. And so what I want to make sure you do is spread out the study sessions, right? Again, like I was saying, start early, at least 3 weeks, maybe 2-ish months before the test date, and do consistent small bits of studying every week and every day. And then by the time you hit Friday, the day before the test, you can just take a break. And what I will say to do, though, is maybe fit in a little warm-up on Friday during the day or Saturday morning before the test, or even both of those, both on Friday and both Saturday morning. I think getting a warm-up in, maybe warming up a few math problems and a few English problems, is really helpful to getting you in the testing mindset. But you're also doing that without burning out the day before, right? Think of it as warming up for, like, if you're an athlete or musician, think of it as you're warming up before a game or before a performance. It really helps out a lot. Okay. So keep that in mind. Tip number 4 is to hydrate really, really well, especially the week leading up to the test, but also I'd say the day before is especially important. I found that when I hydrate really well the day before something, the next day when I'm actually performing, I do really well. Um, the other tip, sub tip in a way, as part of this one, is to not overhydrate on test day. Okay, for obvious reasons. And so I think if you overhydrate, it can obviously be disruptive to your testing. Your brain will be thinking about how uncomfortable you are instead of uh, the hydration actually helping you with your testing. The way I would hydrate on actual test day is to, well, first of all, the night before, even if you're hydrating well on Friday, don't hydrate too much on Friday night because that will disrupt sleep. The hydration on Saturday on your test day should be, maybe drink a big cup of water in the morning just to get everything started. And then what I would say is include some electrolytes in your hydrating. That's going to help a lot. It's going to balance your sort of salt concentration. It's going to help with brain performance. But also, I would say just kind of minimally but consistently hydrate during your testing breaks. Okay, so keep it at a minimum, but keep it consistent, and the hydration should keep you optimally focused throughout the testing. Okay, so again, hydrate really well leading up to it, but do not overhydrate on test day. Okay, tip number 5 is eating a nutritious meal. All right. So whether that's eating, really good stuff the day before the test or the day of the test in the morning, I would mostly focus on eating really well at night for dinner the night before the test. And then also if you eat breakfast, if you choose to do so, have a really good nutritious breakfast, right? So focus on, not eating too little, not eating too much. Keep it nice and nutritious. Focus on proteins, fats, and then maybe some carbs too. But if you're doing carbs, don't do the starchy type because that can reduce your energy. That can sometimes cause an energy crash, and that will not be good for cognitive or brain performance. Okay, so if you're going to throw some carbs in, make sure they're whole grains or complex carbs or some veggies even too. I just think it's really important because you want to be well satiated, but you also want to the protein will a lot of times help with cognitive performance and brain power. So make sure you get that in. Okay. Tip number 6 is, this is kind of going back to the sleep a little bit, but it's almost a separate issue. While you've gotten yourself on your consistent sleep schedule, I think a lot of people get into their heads like, oh, I need to sleep extra long tonight, the night before the test, or I need to do something extra to make my day tomorrow better. Try not to do that. Don't force yourself to go to bed super early because I feel like it's just going to only frustrate you when you're not able to go to bed, as early as you want. Just stick to your consistent schedule. And even if, some extra nerves are keeping you up a little bit, just find something to do to relax. Okay. But just don't try to force anything the night before or force anything the morning of that you wouldn't typically do, right? That you haven't been doing in your consistent schedule, the weeks and months leading up to the test. Okay. So that rounds out the main 6 tips, but I have a bonus tip here at the end, and that is to practice mindfulness or meditation. And I would say, especially if you can manage it the morning of the test, if you can practice meditation the morning of the test, it'll give you it'll put you in a clear mindset. It'll clear up your brain to be able to do cognitive work. And also, I would say if you do mindfulness more consistently in the weeks and months leading up to the test date, at that point, you'll be better and more practiced at meditating, and you can get in that meditative state easier. And I really think this provides a huge boost for testing in general. Again, more focus, more concentration, especially if you've been doing it consistently. Have practice with those focus muscles. It'll put you in a much better headspace to test and to perform better. All right, well, those were all the tips. And again, just feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And comment with just any questions that you have, and I will see you in the next video.